4 hours south in a small Illinois suburb, Krista Donahoe roots out the ultimate hustle to move up in love. For Krista Donahoe, childhood isn't all fun and games in Wayne County, Illinois.
I think she lacked a lot of advantages in life that some other people may have had. I think that poverty was probably a pretty prevalent factor in her upbringing.
Krista started building a wall very early with her parents, who tried to give her everything, but it was never enough. And that resentment and that anger ended up with her acting out.
As a teenager, she marches to the beat of her own drum.
She was a party girl. She wanted to live out loud, be rebellious. She wanted to be recognized for living her own life, making her own choices, no matter if those choices were good or bad.
Right? Like, I'm not calling you a slut or anything.
Still living under her mom's roof at age 20, the fast life has done nothing but slow her down.
She lacked any support to give her direction. She did not have a lot of ambitions like further education or employment or starting a family or any of those types of things.
Tensions were high with Krista and her parents. She was able-bodied. She could have gotten a job, but that's not what she chose to do.
But she still likes to party. And when she least expects it, she's blindsided by love in the form of 28-year-old Demetrius Cole.
The night that Krista met Demetrius, it was like a moth to a flame. She was highly attracted to him.
He easily persuades her to talk to him. The conversation comes naturally.
I don't know. I was supposed to go meet some friends at a party. You wanna come?
She was trying to rebel. She was trying to rebel against her parents. She was trying to rebel against society. And Demetrius would stand out to her as someone who represented all those things that she believed she wanted.
In Demetrius, she found someone who she felt could understand the kind of pain that she was in. She felt that they were both behind the 8th ball, but they were behind that 8 ball together.
As he chats her up, she finds out he lives 40 minutes away in a town called Mount Vernon.
Demetrius grew up in a very impoverished part of Mount Vernon. It lent itself to drug trafficking, to violence, and to being able to make $1 on the streets.
As the hours pass, he reveals his villainous background, including convictions for drug distribution, and admits the illegal income he still lives off of.
She learned that he was an ex-con, but she didn't care because they were reflections of one another. They didn't fit in. They didn't want to conform.
The two are smitten.
Demetrius saw Krista as a younger version of himself. You know, she's a bad girl. She's 7 years his junior, so he could mold her.
The more Krista learns about the charismatic hustler, she can't resist going home with him, where she spends the better part of the next few weeks.
Demetrius and Krista started dating just like any hot and heavy romance. They just went full in. She stayed over at his house all the time. They were always together. They were inseparable.
After 3 months, home is where her man is, and there's nothing her parents can do about it.
She moved in with Demetrius's mom in her basement. So it was Krista, Demetrius, and Demetrius's half-brother, Christopher, all in one space.
Even though they live rent-free, the struggle to make ends meet becomes increasingly dire by the day. When Demetrius's illicit income falls short, he blames Krista for their financial hardships.
Do something.
No matter what Demetrius did to Krista, she loved him the same. He could yell at her, he could make her feel awful, but her love for him was unwavering.
But soon, a treacherous plan challenges Krista in a twisted game of proving her worth.
Demetrius Cole is a dangerous person to have appear in your life.
Krista wanted to prove to Demetrius that she was a ride or die, and that she had something to offer. She was valuable by any means necessary. She wanted to be his woman.
Yo, you just shot him!
In Mount Vernon, Illinois, Krista Donahoe and her boyfriend, Demetrius Cole, are unemployed and living in his mother's basement with his brother. But familiarity breeds contempt, and 3 months later, Demetrius threatens to kick her out if she doesn't start pulling her weight financially.
She wasn't about to lose him because in her mind, this is the only person who not only would she be able to connect with or was connecting with, but was the only person who understood her unique needs and she understood his.
God, you don't realize anything I do.
Shut up.
Krista and Demetrius were barely able to make ends meet. They didn't have any money. Nobody had a job, so tensions were really high, and they really needed a break.
This is why you act so angry.
Get out of my face.
And
Go.
they're about to get one. On a hot summer afternoon, Krista goes on a beer run. She parks the car outside a liquor store next to 52-year-old Randy Farrar.
Randy was a successful businessman. His family made money in the oil business, but on his own right, he was wealthy and successful in the real estate industry as well.
As she gets out of the car, Randy slowly approaches.
And Krista lied about her name. She called herself Susan.
And he doesn't beat around the bush.
Randy told Krista he was attracted to her.
He offered to take her out to dinner to let her know that he actually had some money he was willing to spend on her.
I could use a pack of cigarettes. You want to help me with that?
Randy provided $5 to Krista at that time to purchase cigarettes. And he also left her his card with his phone number on it.
She saw dollar signs, she saw money, she saw opportunity, and he was an easy target.
She can't get home fast enough with the news.
Krista told him that she had met this man who appeared to have some money, drove a nice car, and was willing to take her out to dinner and wanted to take her to his home somewhere out in the country. So this is an opportunity for Krista and Demetrius to potentially come up with some money.
To bring Randy into the picture just only solidified that she had something to offer Demetrius, because in her mind, Demetrius had everything to offer her. And here is a way for Krista to contribute to the household.
Business card, I gave him my number, like, I just think this could work.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Just as she hoped, Demetrius is impressed that she had enough game to lure the man in.
In many ways, she felt very validated in her relationship with Demetrius because now she could be useful to him. It built up who she was. It really empowered her to see herself as being useful in this relationship.
As she continues her exciting story of impending wealth, he can't get enough.
Demetrius saw this as his moment to come up. He didn't have consistent income. This was a way to get big money real quick. Demetrius encouraged Krista to develop the relationship with Randy, and Randy was gonna be the solution to their money problems.
Call him. Yeah, let's get this dude.
Okay.
Yeah, come in. Yeah, I'm proud of you. Hey, that's what I'm talking about.
Less than 24 hours later, Demetrius instructs Krista to pick up the phone and start buttering up their golden goose.
Demetrius was supportive of this, that he wanted her to continue to talk to him on the phone, to go out and meet him for dinner and to see where they could take this.
I just wanted to see how you were.
Cheers.
2 days later, Krista knows she's got him in the palm of her hand.
It was flirtatious. Everything indicated that a sexual relationship was what he was after.
And he's ready to use anything in his personal arsenal to get it.
He then started talking about his property and things that he owned, different things of that nature. Made it clear to Krista that he had money and had some means.
After their date, Randy was hooked on Krista, and Krista was hooked on Randy as far as dollar signs. He had money to spend, and he wanted to spend it on her, and she was gonna let him.
Krista leaves the dinner table that night with an invitation to come to Randy's home the following night. To Demetrius, this is his cue to step in.
When Randy invited Krista to his house, it was a no-brainer. It was gonna happen. Somebody was gonna get paid.
The next day, Demetrius plans their action for sundown. Krista will act as the bait to distract Randy, and with the help of his brother, they'll rob his house blind.
Christopher was taken along primarily for muscle, for the backup. Why not make sure you have the advantage when it comes to committing the offense?
But Krista will find out that Demetrius is plotting something even more sinister than she could ever imagine.
It opened her up to a realm of adventure that she didn't really realize that she was getting herself into.
There was nothing she would not do for him.
Desperate for cash, Mount Vernon, Illinois couple Krista Donahoe and her boyfriend Demetrius Cole think they found a rich opportunity in wealthy businessman Randy Farrar.
He had money to spend, and he wanted to spend it on her, and she was gonna let him. When Randy invited Krista to his house, a plan was hatched.
Krista will be the person who goes into the house and provides the distraction for Randy, presumably engaging in some sexual conduct with him while Demetrius and his brother Christopher commit the robbery.
And as they wait out the day until Krista's date, Christopher finds a distraction with 16-year-old neighbor Jenny Archer.
Jenny comes walking down the street, and because Christopher is a ladies' man, she was attracted to him and vice versa. And they just all four started hanging out. It was like an instant friendship.
The decision to go to Randy's house has already been made, and they asked Jenny to join them.
And they all knew the plan except for Jenny.
Leading the teen to believe they had a pit stop to make on the way to a party. She's down to go along for the ride. Just before sunset, the crew piles into Christopher's car, eager to make their move.
Randy lived about 15, 20 minutes outside of Mount Vernon. Large homes, a lot of privacy. Neighbors were spread far apart. Big lawns. It was a beautiful neighborhood.
Shortly after dark, the foursome pulls up to the side of the house. They wait in the car until Krista nervously greets Randy at the door.
Right this way.
Krista slowly lures their target, while the brothers quietly get out of the car.
They're looking to make sure that nobody's around, that there are no surveillance videos or cameras around.
When Jenny agrees to wait in the car, they start moving closer to the house. Inside, Krista is holding up her end of the plan.
So Krista enters the house, immediately engages in some romantic contact with Randy, thereby ensuring that the door will remain unlocked.
In her mind, she knew that she couldn't turn back. She had helped hatch that plan. She was now in the middle of it, and she needed to show Demetrius that she could do this.
So Demetrius and Christopher entered the unlocked door that Krista left open for them.
They continue to observe the scene, case the inside of the house, without being seen by Randy.
He screamed, and they started beating him. They hit him, kicked him, and as Randy's getting viciously attacked, Krista is looking for valuables, things that she could take.
In between blows, they stop to question him.
Man, where's the money?
He's too weak to answer, but the intruders think another round of punches will give him the strength to talk. Still unable to answer, the brothers search the bedroom where they discover an unexpected gem.
Demetrius and Christopher found lots of cash and a small handgun that was Randy's. Once they found the gun, the game completely changed.
They're loading the weapon and pocketing $2 grand in cash when Krista thinks she's found an even bigger jackpot.
Krista returns to the bedroom and she announces that she's found a safe down in the basement.
Yo, there's a safe downstairs. We gotta get it open.
Man, get him, man.
At that point in time, Demetrius and Chris force Randy from the bedroom down the stairs to the basement to try to get in the safe.
Open the safe.
They think his fortune is in it. They think cash is in it.
But it's a gun safe, and the 55-year-old developer would rather die than tell them how to open it.
Randy is placed on his knees at this point in the basement, execution style, with the gun pointed at his head, and they're demanding of him to open the safe.
Anxious to leave, Krista stays close to the action, while her boyfriend makes it another game of hit and tell to get the safe open. And nobody wins.
He's frenetic. He's like, open the safe, and Randy refuses.
It's a moment gone wrong, and when it's all said and done, Krista is in for the shock of her life.
Nobody was expecting that. She screamed, she went crazy. She didn't know what to do.
Even when things went horribly wrong, she stuck by his side until the bitter end.
In Mount Vernon, Illinois, Krista Donahoe, her boyfriend Demetrius Cole, and his brother Christopher Watkins are in the middle of robbing 55-year-old Randy Farrar when their scheme derails.
When Demetrius found the gun, it was a plan gone bad.
He was the person who could tell the police who it was who had done these horrible things, who had committed this robbery.
Demetrius raises his hand and shoots Randy twice in the head and kills him.
As Randy's body falls to the floor, Krista does too.
When Demetrius shot and killed Randy, Krista lost it. She didn't know what to do.
They didn't go out there shooting. They went out there to rob him, and Demetrius pushed it over the edge.
Perhaps she was numb, Perhaps she was in shock. It was apparent that her boyfriend was, in fact, a cold-blooded killer. But still, she loved him. Still, she would try to protect him.
Thunderstruck, the three can think of nothing but getting out of there.
They went around the house trying to gather everything that they touched, things they thought their prints were on. They tried to confiscate it.
They run to the car where they remember Jenny's been waiting for the last 20 minutes. Having heard the gunshot, the teen is too afraid to ask what happened, and the crew offers no explanation.
So they return back to Mount Vernon, and the first thing they do is they come back into town and they get gas. And we believe that at this point in time that some evidence was dumped into the trash can.
They drop Jenny off with $200 to forget they went to Randy's property that night.
Keep your mouth shut.
As the sun rises that same morning, Demetrius and Krista pay cash for a bus ticket to St. Louis, 4 hours away, after Christopher insisted on staying home.
Demetrius Cole and Krista go on the lam at this point. They figure that they can blend into the neighborhoods in St. Louis and larger community.
They stayed in a motel in North St. Louis City, and they just tried to lay low until things blew over.
Over the next 4 days, Randy remains untouched in his basement until his assistant goes to check on things and ends up following a bloody trail to his body. She calls police, who soon swarm the crime scene with investigators. After interviewing a list of usual suspects, police catch their big break in the case.
We had no leads until we start hearing a little bit of whispering on the streets of Mount Vernon about a girl named Jenny who had possibly been present when Randy Farrar was killed. We then talked to and interviewed Jenny, who agrees to cooperate with us.
And what exactly were you doing that night with these people?
We all just got in the car and we were riding around and we pulled up to this huge house.
She knew where they lived and their first names. And in exchange for her testimony, Jenny avoids all charges.
At about the same time, Christopher just appears at the sheriff's office. Wants to talk to us about what happened to Randy Farrar.
Hoping to minimize his charges, Christopher gives police the whole story, emphasizing that his brother was the one who pulled the trigger.
The case took a major change once investigators got with Christopher Watkins. He spilled all the beans. He told them everything from beginning to end. He told everybody who was involved.
And not only that, he tells police where his brother and Krista escaped to the day after the murder. There are hundreds of thousands of women in prison at any given time in the U.S. These are the true stories of women who committed heinous crimes in the name of love. For my man. Growing up in Wheaton, Illinois, Annette Williams' happy childhood teaches her that family can be one of life's greatest gifts.
Annette was the oldest of 3 children. She was very happy. She was close to her parents.
Her parents were a hard-working couple who were devoted to their children. They worked hard to support their family.
The adored daughter wants for nothing throughout grade school.
She had a pretty happy childhood. She was involved in her church and did pretty well in school.
But as Annette grows into adolescence, her seemingly perfect world falls to pieces when she finds out that her parents aren't as devoted to each other as she thought, and split up.
The divorce seemed to affect her emotionally. She started to trouble with her grades. She started to display some behaviors at home in terms of acting out and misbehaving.
What we see with children of divorce is they oftentimes are very upset, very depressed, very angry. So they act out to gain the attention of their parents.
In the wake of her father moving out of the house, the teenager finds comfort in the arms of attractive men, one after the other.
Subsequently, she became pregnant at 16 years old by a young man who did not stick around. In fact, by the time the baby was born, he was gone.
Plunged into parenthood, she drops out of high school to nurture her newborn.
Her parents couldn't help her because they couldn't afford to just take care of another child along with her. So it was her obligation to try to take care of her child.
Over the next year, the teen mom works hard in a daycare center to support her baby on her own while living under her mom's roof. But her new responsibilities don't stop the hopeless romantic from falling in love.
She's raising her child and she meets someone else. She ends up getting married. By the time she's 17, she's a married mother.
Over the next 6 years, they move into their own home and have 2 children together, putting a financial strain on the household.
The relationship is volatile. Constant arguments, going back and forth. She's finding it very, very difficult.
And their lack of income adds fuel to the ever-growing fire.
They began to fight. The fight led to more fights, and soon it became very violent.
After her last child with him, she decided to get her tubes tied so that she would not have any more pregnancies unexpectedly.
And so she begins to think about the future of her kids and what would be best for them.
After 7 years of marriage, the weary couple files for a divorce. And the 30-year-old father leaves and never turns back, not even for the kids.
Annette decides that she has to do whatever she can to make sure that her children have the best life that they can possibly have. And she decides to go to school for a nursing assistant.
Annette finishes her certified nursing program. She finds employment with a local nursing home, and now she can take care of her children. She feels that things are looking up for her, and she can move forward now in her life.
Even though she started getting her life together after a divorce, there was something that was missing from her life, and that was having a family, having the love of someone who could cherish her.
A year after her divorce, life will never be the same again after the 27-year-old catches the attention of well-known drug dealer Fidel Caffey.
So Fidel sees this beautiful woman walking down the street. You know, he puts on the moves and he asks her for her name and her number.
He's talked in a very smooth and slick manner, and Annette was intrigued by Fidel's appearance. He was a light-skinned man with curly, wavy hair, and that was something that appealed to her.
It's the first of many conversations to come in the next few weeks.
They began to go out, to date each other. The romance became very strong.
After sharing stories of their broken childhood homes, they find out they both want the same thing for their futures, a family that sticks together.
The relationship became so intense within a short period of time, just a matter of weeks.
Fidel moves in with her and her children, and they begin to build a life together.
Because of her boyfriend's lucrative drug trade, Annette feels completely taken care of for the first time in her life.
In fact, the drug dealing is so good that Fidel tells Annette, look, you can stop working, I'll take care of you.
Annette's fortunes had changed. Fidel had brought stability into her life in terms of providing a place to live, to take care of her children, and to bring a sense of comfort. She's not struggling so much anymore.
For the first time in her life, she thinks she has everything she's ever hoped for, until she finds out that her man still wants for something very dear.
I want you to have my son.
Fidel told Annette that he wanted her to have his baby, and he wanted this boy to be just like the both of them. But in particular, he wanted this boy to be light-skinned, just like he was.
His words knock the wind out of her. Her secret from the past is still undusted.
I have to tell you something. Annette had not told Fidel that she couldn't get pregnant.
She felt that if she told Fidel that she could not have children, that he would probably leave her.
Annette's heart wells up into her throat as she tells him she can't have children anymore.
I can't have your son. He was disappointed, but he wasn't mad at her. He didn't throw her out. Their relationship didn't end.
It's hard to swallow, but the devastating truth brings them closer.
When Fidel saw Annette crying, when she broke down and told him that she couldn't have that baby that he wanted to have with her, he really felt bad for her. He really loved her.
It didn't matter to Fidel that he and Annette couldn't physically have a baby themselves, as long as they were able to find a baby. I will get you a son.
And when they find the perfect mark, she'll move hell on earth to get Fidel exactly what he wants.
Everything she thought she needed was right inside of that woman, right in front of her.
Annette proved there was nothing she wouldn't do to give Fidel what he wanted.
In the outskirts of Chicago, mother of 3 Annette Williams and her boyfriend Fidel Caffey are ready to do whatever it takes to have a child together, even though Annette had her tubes tied during a previous relationship.
It didn't matter to Fidel that he and Annette couldn't physically have a baby themselves, as long as they were able to get a baby.
And the dutiful girlfriend assures him that they will, and Fidel is game.
I'm working out, man. It's me and you.
A few weeks later, Annette's favorite cousin, 24-year-old Laverne Ward, pays a visit with some very compelling information.
Annette found out that her cousin Laverne's ex-girlfriend is pregnant. So the wheels are turning now in Annette's mind.
She's having a boy or a girl?
She's having a boy.
Annette was deeply interested in Deborah's pregnancy because Deborah was white, Laverne was black. Deborah was also pregnant with a boy.
Like, I could just kill this girl.
This is a perfect situation.
This information triggers a spark between Fidel and Annette.
So Deborah essentially was carrying the very type of child that Fidel wanted.
I can't come to the house. I can't see her. I can't have any contact with my son. She's getting a restraining order.
And the couple can't believe their luck when Laverne laments about his failed relationship and the recent restraining order that's been slapped on him.
It had turned violent so many times that Deborah kicked him out of her home, and she wouldn't allow him to see their 2-year-old son that they shared together.
I already can't see the first one. I can't be in this one's life.
So Laverne is at a boiling point. He has one child with Deborah that he cannot see. Deborah is pregnant with his second child, and he probably won't be able to see that child either.
Laverne is so upset with Deborah that at one point he states that he's actually willing to kill Deborah in order to see his son.
We will get your son, and we'll raise him as if he's our own.
Her cousin is all too willing to help them get his child when they fill him in on the developing plan.
Kill Deborah.
He knew that if they got the baby, then he would have an opportunity to be in that child's life too.
So they all have different motivations, but they all want the same thing.
All right, let's do this.
And there's no time like the present. 2 hours after sundown, across town, Laverne's ex has just put 2 of her kids, 10-year-old Samantha and 7-year-old Joshua, to bed. 2-year-old Malcolm is still up and about.
She had fed her kids, and she's getting ready to turn in for the night when Fidel, Annette, and Laverne arrive.
Hey, girl. Hey, Malcolm.
Deborah's surprised to see them. After Annette explains that she wants to catch up while Laverne visits with his son, she lets them in.
She let them in the house because Annette was there. Here's another woman, perhaps, who would protect her, someone who she didn't fear. They weren't the best of friends, but there was no reason to think that there would be any skullduggery. After all, there is safety in numbers.
They enter. Fidel and Laverne, they are sitting on the couch. Annette and Deborah has struck up a conversation, and they're talking to each other.
Annette looks at Deborah's overdue belly as if she's studying her. Everything she wants for their future is right there in front of her.
It's around the corner. Actually, what? Thanks. Sure.
Annette went to the bathroom.
Then the men jump into action. After Laverne puts his young son in a chair across the room, Fidel shoots Deborah twice in the head.
When she returned, she saw Fidel holding a handgun and Laverne on top of Deborah, stabbing her repeatedly in the neck.
As Deborah lay dying in a growing pool of blood, they know it's now or never.
Fidel begins to cut open Deborah's stomach. He removes the fetus. Annette's medical skills kick in. She removes the fetus from Fidel's hand. She breathes through the fetus's nose. She breathes through the mouth, and the baby begins to cry.
And now she feels she and Fidel have their child.
There was blood everywhere. There was a dead body lying on the floor. But yet, through it all, Annette was happy. She was holding this baby that she believed, in her mind, was hers.
She was literally holding her future in her arms, her future with Fidel, being able to finally give him what he wanted and what she wanted.
Annette stays with the baby, while Fidel and Laverne search the house, looking for Deborah's other kids.
They first run into Samantha.
She was terrified, and They knew that they had a witness that they had to get rid of, and so they decided at that moment to kill Samantha.
They stabbed her to death.
This young child not being able to defend herself, listening to her mother being killed, this is just senseless.
After leaving Samantha dead in her room, the killers graze past Laverne's son, Malcolm. They leave him on the floor just a few feet away from his mother's mangled body.
It appears that they let Malcolm live, perhaps because Laverne wasn't willing to cross that final line in taking the life of his own son.
They're all ready to flee the bloodbath until one more problem appears before them.
There's another person in the house. It's 7-year-old Joshua.
And he's seen everything.
He was actually running away because he was afraid. He thought that they had left already. He's frightened and scared, and he runs right into the people who are responsible for killing his mother.
The silence is piercing as the three look at each other, unsure what to do with the boy.
He was the proof that they had been in that home. Now they must decide what's next. What do we do with little Joshua?
As terrible as the events had become, she needed more time to think about what to do. She just was not, at that point, willing to have that trigger pulled to take a life, especially since she was holding on to a newborn life.
They bring Joshua to Annette's friend Sarah Hemming's house for the night to buy them some time.
Annette tells Sarah that Joshua's mother was shot in a drug-related incident and that they will be back in the morning to pick him up.
And she leaves Joshua with them, and they put Joshua to bed.
30 minutes later, Annette rocks the newborn to sleep, while Deborah's current boyfriend comes home to a scene from hell. 2-year-old Malcolm is crawling in a pool of blood next to his mother's dead body. In the bedroom, he discovers the harrowing fate of 10-year-old Samantha. Panicked, he keeps searching the house.
Joshua is missing, nowhere to be found, and he calls the police.
Law enforcement immediately sound off a race against the clock to find the missing boy alive.
So they began to put out images of Joshua in the media, hoping that if anyone saw him, that they would come forward.
As the sun rises, Annette goes to pick up Joshua from her friend's house, where she is immediately confronted. The boy has been up for hours talking about his terrifying recount of the night before.
Annette assures Sarah that this isn't true and that, she would take care of this. And now Annette is really beginning to think we have another witness here. They can identify us, and now something needs to happen.
She convinces Sarah to come with her and the little boy back to her place, where she has some gifts to give her. When the three arrive, Annette tells her boyfriend that the boy has been talking. He directs her to keep them in the garage, where he'll put an end to the threat.
Sarah is in the front seat of the car and can feel Joshua kicking against the back of the seat.
Fidel turns to her and says, "If you continue screaming, I will kill your entire family."
Before long, Joshua stops kicking. Despite the unthinkable horror, the last witness keeps quiet for a chance at surviving.
So now they have an innocent 7-year-old boy, and they wrap his body in a sheet and dump him in an alley in a suburb. So after they get rid of Joshua's body, they take Sarah back home. They allow her to live. They believe that because she's so frightened, she'll never tell anyone.
But Sarah's discretion isn't enough to hide their savagery.
Sarah's boyfriend was watching the news, and he sees Joshua's picture come across the screen.
So although Sarah had promised she would never tell what she had witnessed, her boyfriend called the police and reported that he had seen this child and he knew who he was.
For investigators working around the clock, his tip leads to a big break in the case. They waste no time bringing Sarah in for questioning. She evades all charges when she agrees to testify.
Sarah told police that she witnessed Fidel kill Joshua, how they wrapped his body, how they dumped him in the alley. She also took the police directly to where the body was found.
They just left him there.
Before the interview is over, a team is already on their way to Annette and Fidel's house with an arrest warrant and the hope to find the newborn alive.
They have the baby. The baby is healthy and cared for.
When the police officers attempt to take the baby from Annette, she gets hysterical. She just gets really upset. And she's constantly saying, "That's my baby. That's my baby."
But her cries are ignored. Both Annette Williams and Fidel Caffey are arrested and charged with first-degree murder and kidnapping. Later that day, Laverne Ward is also arrested at his home and charged with first-degree murder.
When Annette was arrested, she basically told the police everything. She walked the police step by step through everything that each one of them had done.
In a very skewed, very bizarre way, Annette felt that by telling this story, it would sort of normalize the situation, that she was doing all of these noble things for her guy, that she was taking care of a baby, she was bringing a life into the world, that she was establishing a family.
All three are found guilty. Annette and Fidel both received the death penalty. Laverne receives life in prison. But no amount of time behind bars will ever change the deadly trail they left behind.
There's Deborah, who was brutally killed. There's Joshua, who was brutally killed. There's his sister Samantha, who was brutally killed. But there's also the two survivors, the baby that Annette took from Deborah, and the 2-year-old, Laverne's son, who survived this ordeal. Annette's children also lost their mother when she committed this crime.
Annette already had children of her own, some of them close to the age of the one that they killed. It doesn't make sense. But there are some women out there who will do anything for their man.
Annette Williams tears apart countless lives to see her man live out his
Contacted St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department and began working with them, locating different places he could have stayed, and began searching through those places.
As police write their names down, the wanted couple are still laying low, living off of Randy's money. It takes 4 months, but the St. Louis Police Department finally gets a tip that their suspects are out in the open near a motel.
Demetrius and Krista were located in the north side of St. Louis, Missouri.
Under questioning, neither Demetrius Cole or Krista Donahoe would speak with us. They both requested attorneys.
Krista Donahoe and Demetrius Cole are tried for first-degree murder and robbery. Before Randy's grieving family, neither Krista or Demetrius show remorse at their trials. Demetrius receives 52 years in prison, and Krista receives 45 years. Christopher Watkins is also tried and found guilty of first-degree murder and is sentenced to 45 years in prison. As the books close on a senseless murder, Krista's love story is put to an end.
This is a classic case of eyes wide shut, and she knew what was going on, but yet she was allowing this to happen, allowing it to play out to the point of where her physical freedom would be gone. She did this all for the love of Demetrius. She did this all for the love of her man.
Falling in love with Demetrius Cole and seeking to make him love her back the same way that she loved him was the biggest mistake she made.